John, have I told you I'm addicted to Carwell's auctions?
You might have mentioned it, yeah.
Well, they're online 6 days a week. They're getting 20,000 fresh vehicles in every month. It's actually one of my best sources of quality stock. Listings have got plenty of photos, service history, and background checks for peace of mind. And you can pay sellers in a click with Carwell Wallet. They even transport your car with built in protection of up to £25,000.
Well, that's more than you will ever need.
Exactly, John. So, dealers, if you're not on CarWow, you really should get in on the auction. See what I've done, John?
Oh, God.
Anyway, to find out more, sign up for free at carwow.co.uk/partners/auctions.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer Podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and joining me this week is Gosport's premier automotive electrician, James Baggott. James!
Premier Yeti dealer, actually, John, because I've got 4 of those in stock at the moment, desperately trying to get rid of them. So if you want a Yeti, I'm your man.
Right,
Great.
so you seem to do this thing where you go, that sells really well, I'm just going to buy all of them in the country.
And then saturate the market, and then they stop selling, and then I realised I've made a mistake. Right, some updates for you, John. Suzuki Jimny Saga, the white one that I imported, I finally fixed, and it's finally gone out the door this week. It actually drove away yesterday, and I cannot tell you quite how happy I was to see the back of that car. But do you want to know what the problem was? I mean, just a little reminder, the speedos weren't working. We were trying to convert the clocks. We had 3 different sets of clocks in it. None of them worked. Everybody said we needed a new ECU. We imported a new ECU from Japan at the cost of £1,000, air freighted especially for us. It was all set to go up to Robin Luscombe's, the Leeds dealer, Suzuki dealer, on Tuesday, but I had a last-ditch attempt of getting the clocks man, as I call him, to come back out and try and give it a go, fix it.
Chris Martin?
Yeah, he wasn't available. But yes, this guy turned up and he looked at it for about 5 minutes, then disappeared rapidly, didn't even say goodbye. So I rang him and I said, look, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do to sort this car out? And he said the only thing that's different after I've messed about with those clocks is the stereo, which we put in. And we're all thinking, like, how on earth can a stereo stop a speedo working? So I said to Darren, our mechanic, just take the stereo out just to see if it works. Took the stereo out, speedo started working. And we're like, okay. And do you know what it was, John? It was one cable, an earth cable that had been incorrectly put in that was causing the speedo to stop working. And so all of this hassle, all these last 8 weeks of saga was all down to one little piece of wire. So yes, very frustrated. And do you know what? The really good news is the £1,000 ECU, non-refundable. So if you know anybody who wants an ECU for a Suzuki Jimny 2015, please get in touch.
Well, and the good news for Robin Luscombe is that he's not had to bear his arse to Leeds city centre.
No, he was quite pleased when I called him up and said we don't need our appointment. He didn't have to do that. But yeah, so obviously on the back of that, John, we had the excitement of all our new imports arriving. So last week I told you about the fact we went up and bought 7 more from a dealer in Norfolk. I rang him on Tuesday and asked him to add another Jimny to the transporter, which he did. So we had 8 turn up on Wednesday afternoon. Two new Jimnys, one old one, and some Volkswagens and a Volvo. So we are busy preparing those, but it was quite exciting to see them all.
Preparing, James, just don't touch them.
No, I haven't done any of that. And what I mean by preparing is I lovingly polished one yesterday because our normal volunteer is off on annual leave and I'm having to do everything again. So yeah, that was my day yesterday.
Polishing a Jimny is a bit like polishing one of your shoes. So
yeah,
not much of a task.
It's quite a quick job. Quite a quick job. But yeah, you can go and have a look at that advertised now and live on Auto Trader and our other platforms, and hopefully it will sell. But it'd be interesting because all of the other ones we sold via other like Google and our website. We didn't actually properly advertise them. So this is the first one I've advertised properly. So it'd be interesting to see how quickly, if at all, it sells. I've got everything crossed because I've got 2 of them in stock. So hopefully it works. Anyway, let's talk to a man who knows more about imports than I do. I'll get. I'll let you do the intro, John.
So, joining us this week is none other than Top Gear's former Stig. It's Ben Collins. Ben, lovely to have you on.
Boys, great to be with you. How are you?
Very good, Ben.
Wow.
You don't need an ECU for an old 2015 Jimny, do you?
I don't, but who doesn't love a Jimny? They're great
They are,
cars.
they are
People
good
love
cars.
them.
They
They're
do
they're
love them.
really curious, and I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, but cars from Japan, which is what I'm getting involved with now. But the Jimneys in Japan are different spec, so you can actually get same car, more seats. So there's all these curiosities, the different locations with variations on cars we love. But yeah, people are going crazy for Jimneys, and they're holding their value, aren't they?
Yeah,
Hope so.
I've been quite impressed at how quickly they sold. We had two new ones and an old 2015 model, and they sold very, very quickly. And most of the people have just been waiting for us to go through all the IVA testing and all of the registration process that we've had to do for these imports, which is rather stressful and has taken up a lot of our time. But you're doing things slightly differently, aren't you? Let's tell us a little bit about before I go on to everything else. Tell us a little bit about the business you're involved in now and how it all works.
Yeah. So, well, since leaving Top Gear, my main business has been doing stunts in movies, and set up a YouTube channel. So I had tons of fun with that. And through that, also, getting to know more about your industry, I suppose, car dealership through my warranty connections with Warranty Solutions Group. And that's been brilliant. So got to, the more time I've spent with the likes of Mike Brewer and yourself, the more I've got to learn about the challenges of the industry and the opportunities as well, especially UK and how these different markets are so different. The car shortage in the UK and trying to get good stock in, that kind of stuff. And then that's led me to get in touch with these guys who've been working quietly in the background, trying to find best way to bring cars from Japan to the UK. And I know a little bit about that just anecdotally because from back in the 90s, I've been buying cars that were that were Japanese imports. Famously, my beloved Toyota Supra, which I wrote off stupidly on a country lane, was one of them. It didn't quite make it, but it arrived, pristine, far cheaper than cars we get in the UK. So you get great value, but in great order, low mileage, and so yeah, that was a great opportunity when I was younger, to have a lovely car and treat it badly. But recently, I've been doing a better job of looking after them. So I've currently got two. I've got one, a Nissan Silvia drift car, which I actually bought from a movie I was working on, My Fault, which I don't know if you've seen that, but it's quite a fun film. Fast and Furious esque. And it was the first time I'd ever driven a Silvia. They're just wonderful, front engine, rear wheel drive. The action team stuck a hydraulic handbrake in it, so for me, it's like the ultimate toy. I had to have it. Once I'd driven it, just fell in love with it. But again, another car from Japan, and I've got a Lancia Delta Integrale, which is my
Nice.
favorite. And another one, and I saw it. It was one of those classics where it was Mike Fernie's fault from Drive Tribe. He'd said, "Oh, you've been banging on about getting a Lancia. There's one in the auction." And I went to look at it, and it was like a time warp. It appeared through the window, and all the seats were immaculate. Everything inside was just so well looked after, and that's kind of the story of these cars. I think ad hoc dealers have been buying cars from Japan for like I say, for a long time. It's a known fact that um, they don't salt the roads in Japan, so you don't get the corrosion. They're lower mileage. People look after them, and been seeing these cars coming off the transporters from Japan, and they've still, the BMWs were still with that blue tape
Mm.
over the sills. I mean, it's just they just look well looked after, which is the culture out there. So yeah, ad hoc sales I think have been going on. The different model which we're doing at MotorCap is to really save all the hassle that dealers go through with importing. So 3 month delay on cars arriving, all that stuff. So we're buying these cars, we're hand picking them, only going after the premium ones. We've got guys out there selecting in conjunction with our team to pick the best of the stock that's available, buy it up, bring it over, get everything done so that it's retail ready when it gets to the UK. We do all the coding and the conversion that needs to be done. Limited that it is, it's only small touches, and then it's ready to go. And we're selling them through BCA auctions, and seeing these cars go out on the market within a week, with a 50% markup for the dealers. So it's I think it's the right business for the right time. Usually the sort of year bracket is sort of pre 2017. I've heard mechanics say the best cars ever made were made before 2014. So I think it's a really good sweet spot. With cost of living, things like that, I think secondhand market is crucial, and getting a really well looked after car from that sort of era. And these are European cars, so it's BMWs, Audis, VWs, the cars that people love and want to have, but in better nick.
So Ben, you're effectively taking care of a lot of the hassles that I've had to deal with. I mean, we went out to John and I went out to Japan to buy these cars, but purely to see what these amazing auctions are like. I mean, we saw the conditions of these vehicles on the road, and they are amazing, which is why we invested in them and brought them back and started selling them ourselves. But the hassle we've had since, it's been a big headache. I mean, actually, if I put the time and effort that my business partner and I put into preparing these cars, getting them registered with the government, they wouldn't be profitable. Just the time and the effort we put in. But you've solved that headache for dealers, haven't you? Because you do all of that for them. Has that been a bit of a challenge though for you and the team?
So the guys that are doing it have been doing it for so long. The answer to that is no, really. And BCA great to work with. So they've got a really efficient system. I think I know that. So Will, who has been involved in arbitrage for I think over a decade prior to this in a bigger business, who's one of who is the co-founder of the company. He's been dealing with very large fleet sales for a long time. So in terms of all the logistics and dealing with shipping and all that stuff, I'm sure it's a lot. I know casually that's in his basket, and I know that he's he's like the swan. The legs are frantically, but on the top of the water, he looks ever so calm, dealing with all the different shipments and stuff like that. But that's just part of it, and obviously as we grow, which is the whole point of this thing, we can scale that up. That side should get easier, but in terms of doing the conversions and stuff. The guys that do it, that is their day job, and there aren't any surprises. And you're right that these weird and wonderful things that cars can do when a cable gets earthed, or it's like, well, why is the indicator now not working, or whatever it is. People who are good at dealing with those systems, it's all about having the right person doing the right job. I am not that person. But the guys who are working on the forecourt getting it done, they know exactly what they're doing. And then the other side of it is obviously buying the right kit and knowing what's on trend.
How many are you bringing in then on a monthly basis?
So it's been rough. So to start off, it's been about 15 a month. So it's early days. It's just beginning, but there is now. I think that we've got. I think for the next for the coming weeks, there's going to be about that per week going out through BCA. And they're great. They're great bits of kit, and that I think there's also some on buy it now that are selling within minutes. So the popularity's there. I think people don't yet know who we are. We've only been doing it a couple of months through BCA, so it's a case of sort of getting some awareness. But the kit speaks for itself, and I think those early birds that got in, they've made great money and quite quickly turning them through. So we're never going to get involved with retail. It will always be what we're doing, which is basically financing that to bridge that gap, get the stock in, put it through the auction, and support the dealers who are going to make a living reselling.
There's a little bit of an education piece of consumers as well, isn't there? I mean, just having spoken to the customers who come in and who've bought the imports we've had so far, you sort of have to explain the fact that they don't really come with much service history, although they have been incredibly well looked after. You sort of have to sell them on the condition of the vehicle rather than the paperwork that you'll get. Is there anything that you're doing or anything that the team's doing to help educate consumers that these are good cars to buy?
Yeah, you're right. The service history thing is the one thing we all go to, isn't it? You want to see that FSH written there and how many owners, that sort of stuff, which is key because they're key markers on knowing what state the vehicle's in. So yes, it's a different culture in Japan. They've got the Shaken, which is this really arduous testing program. I mean, we've got the MOT, but that's a cakewalk by comparison to what they do in Japan, and it's partly why the cars get pushed out because it's an expensive process. For owners out there. But fundamentally, the culture in Japan is they're very fastidious about maintaining their equipment. So that goes into it. A lot of the cars do have service history, and now that that's become digitized, we are able to bring those back. But fundamentally, we've got decent data behind all the cars we're buying, and actually we've just been talking to Warranty Solutions Group about the risk profile, which is what they do. They look at dealers, they look at vehicles, whether they'll apply a warranty here or there, and so we're working with them, and they're really excited about what we're doing because they can see, they can validate the information we've got on these cars coming in, to be more than happy to stick a warranty on that product, which is great.
I mean, we've talked a lot about imports on this podcast, as I'm sure you can imagine, because we've been very much involved in it. But what do you think about the import market as a whole? How big do you think it could get here in the UK, especially with this used car shortage we're seeing at the moment?
I think it's going to explode. I mean, I think so. I think that the market for Japanese cars is currently 500 million a year. But if you look at New Zealand, I can't remember. I don't actually know what their stats are, but they've been importing at scale for longer. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't dwarf what we're doing already. And I think even it's also Ireland is way ahead of
Yes.
the mainland, whatever we call ourselves, England, Scotland, Wales.
Mm.
They're way ahead. And I think the fact is the value's there, the quality's there. And you literally, I turned up to go and I was so excited to go and see at BCA our first batch that came in. And it's beggars belief, like literally you're peeling tape off stuff that's the sort of like it's in its protective wrapper. So you're just not dealing with the same problems we get used to here, the potholes, all that stuff. It's just not the way in Japan. So yeah, other countries are already gone through this cycle and they're way ahead. So I just think it will explode. It'll be, it's going to grow very quickly.
And how are you involved in the company then, Ben? I mean, what are you doing?
Well, I get overexcited about the kit, obviously, because I love cars. So I'm trying to contain myself on that, and try and keep myself off the trigger when it's auction time in Japan, because we're supposed to stay on target. I'm really keen to see it grow. I think it's just a fantastic business to get behind. I think it's good for everybody, good for consumers. It's going to be good for dealers to increase their profits. So my role really is to try and drive the awareness. And also I think once once this grows, at the moment we're going for your I suppose your mainstream cars that everybody needs and wants on a regular basis, and that's getting churned through year on year. But there's definitely a case to get into the more exotic stuff. And so that'll be fun for me as well. So I get to review some of these things that are, like we are just talking about the Jimny, that are unique to Japan. I think I'm right in saying it's 2 seats in the UK, isn't it? But the
Mm.
But they
Japanese,
don't even sell it here now. But it was 2 seats when
yeah,
just before they stopped making it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So I think really my role will be to raise awareness. I think stories like that are very interesting because how many people would have loved to have had 4 seats, and when a model gets discontinued, there's still a way to find it somewhere else. Obviously the Japanese drive on the same side as us, so it's not that it's not a, like you say, if you have to do it independently or individually, whether it's a dealer or one man, one woman going to Japan to buy their own car, that's hard work. So the idea is we just take the fuss out
still
of it
there.
and provide a great service.
Ben, I could talk about imports all day, but it'd be amiss of me not to ask you about your incredible career. You've done so much that I want to chat about. Let's rewind the clock back. I was doing a little bit of research ahead of this podcast, unusual for me, but I saw that you started your career in the army as an instructor for special forces driving. I mean, what is that all about?
Yeah, so I've done all sorts. I mean, like most racing drivers, I ended up working at the racetracks, at the race schools, trying to teach people how to drive better. I reckon the ratio is 1 in 10 are trainable. I say 1 in 10, you get really lucky, and it's somebody who can really progress, and you have a fantastic time. And the rest of us are sort of, different levels of ability. That's just the way we are. So I had a lot, but I really enjoyed it, learning it about the strengths and weaknesses of an individual, trying to recognise that and work on it, which then spilled over into my Top Gear days, teaching all the celebrities, which was just a ton of fun, just brilliant, and such a cool part of the job in the reasonably priced car. And then at the same time, I was getting, starting to do some stuff with the military, and I did some research with the police about their training systems, and I was fairly shocked with techniques that they were using, and discovered that basically the police system, which is the push and pull and not braking and down changing the gears at the same time, that philosophy is basically from the 1920s. It's based on when the steering wheel was the size of a yacht with no power steering. You had to turn it by pushing and pulling it. There was no other way. And it's from when you had to double the clutch, which anyone listening to this now will say, "What does he talk? What does that even mean?" Where you had to pull the gear lever out of a gear, with the clutch, rev the engine, and then second time pump the clutch to get the gear to go back in. If you've never driven a vintage car, you won't ever need to understand what that means. But that is why in the 1920s, they didn't overlap braking and down changing. So I was amazed that as of 2000, they're still teaching that philosophy in the police in Britain. So it's quite antiquated, and largely based on the sort of set in stone. Thou shalt teach what thou was taught by your instructor. Spread the news, basically. Ironically, the Met was the guy that set that training system up was a racing driver, and it's just been canonized and carried on. So I've had a healthy debate with the police driving teams, and there are different styles that they use, but predominantly it's fairly antiquated. Anyway, they were having quite a high ratio of accidents during training, the police were, and then so were the army. So I managed to get involved with that and try and come up with some ideas of how they could make themselves safer when they're in the learning process. And eventually that's why I also wrote my book, How to Drive, because ultimately I've done some very, very stupid stuff on the road, learning the hard way, which is my favorite way to learn. And I've learned a lot from 20 odd years of racing and doing Top Gear stuff, working in movies. So I tried to bring all of that together in one place, and set it down in writing. But yeah, it's been great. I loved working with the army because they are the best listeners. They it's working with athletes and military. They just tune in. They absolutely tune into what you're telling them, assimilate the information and deploy it. So they're great to work with because they learn really quickly.
So tell me how did the Top Gear job come about?
Yeah, well, effectively, my racing career seemed to have ended. It was I had an amazing time, raced single seaters, got up to Le Mans, racing at Le Mans 24 hours in the peak of my career in LMP1, so the top category there, doing 220 miles an hour at Le Mans, which is just incredible. Racing in the World Sports Car Championship, so dizzy heights, racing against Ferrari and these other big names. Loads of people from F1, IndyCar were in that series at the time. But the team I was racing for, Ascari, closed in 2002. And at the time, people were not interested in 20-year-old racing drivers. They wanted, who hadn't, unless you'd raced in Formula One, they were looking at people who are older than me, who were coming out of Formula One to go and race their Le Mans cars, for better or worse. Trying to convince them that I had beaten these people in this previous season didn't seem to help me at all. So I really thought that was the end of it, and I was looking for basically other work because I needed to find a new direction. So I joined the Army Reserve. That was first step, whilst also auditioning for jobs on TV, one of which was Top Gear. And I did various interviews, didn't get any jobs with any of them. So I met John Bentley, who discovered Jeremy Clarkson, but he discovered no skills in me whatsoever. He didn't hire me for Channel 5. And I met met Andy Willman, went to the Top Gear track, drove a car, and he looked fairly nonplussed, and that was it. So I was really looking for other stuff to do. And it was only about 2 months later, I got a random phone call saying, "Can you be at the Top Gear track on Tuesday?" And I got there. There was a white racing suit and a helmet, and off I went. And that was the beginning. So
Was it at that point that you realised that your face wasn't going to be on TV and you were going to be this anonymous person for years?
yeah, it's perfect. I didn't want to my mug on telly. I genuinely, at the beginning of that, I could not have been more relieved to be wearing a helmet. The thought of being on camera absolutely terrified me. And, watching the presenters do what they did, I was just like, wow, how do you do this? And it was Clarkson off the telly and Hammond and May, loads of people, really smart, smart crews wearing North Face jackets with really big, expensive cameras. And it all looked very complicated, and it was, and highly orchestrated. And brilliantly organised and masterminded with by Andy Willman and his production team. So to start off, I was very happy hiding in the helmet. And then as time went on and you kind of get more comfortable around the crews and you start to understand the craft and what they're doing, I guess I got more and more interested in it. But I was very happy not talking. Well, at least not on camera.
How did you keep it a secret? I mean, did you have to turn up in the helmet, or was that did everybody there knew who you were, and it was a case of they were just sworn to secrecy?
So basically, there was the Stig in the black suit prior to my time. So I was there 8 years in the end, and the black Stig, black suited Stig, he was there. He lasted 8 months. I think it was a series and a half or something like that. And his character famously got killed off. They probably unbeknownst to Perry, who was doing the job at the time,
Yeah,
they
Perry
managed
McCarthy, wasn't it?
they managed to get access to HMS Invincible, I think it was.
Mm.
They loaded the character into a Jaguar and shot him off the steam catapult into the North Sea. And apparently, the boat nearly ran over the car. The car didn't sink as quickly as they were expecting, so there was nearly a collision. But that was the end of him. Partly because I think his identity was getting known, or at least that's how I perceived it. So I thought, right, if you want to keep this job, don't tell anybody. And it's a fairly simple and effective rule. So I didn't tell anyone, and I would go to work. I had an old balaclava, so I would slip that on when I was about a mile out.
Really?
The security guard wasn't too keen on that, and the crew also thought it was pretty strange. But after a few weeks, they got used to it, and I'd just go, I'd go and park my car in the middle of nowhere, ditch my wallet, anything with a credit card or a name on it, and then shuffle in quietly and try and not be seen where I was getting changed and all that sort of stuff. And there was actually at Dunsfold, it used to be the Harrier jump jet testing ground. So originally, I was changing in the pilot's changing room, which was quite cool. And then we got moved around to a porter cabin and whatever. But I was good at getting changed and not being seen, and I kept it. You either keep it completely in a bubble. If you let anything in, well, once you let information out, that's game over. And so eventually, that is how it unravelled, because it's stupid stuff like you have to sign an insurance form, and you can't just write the Stig. They're not happy with that. You have to put your real name in.
Mm. I mean,
but-
what did you tell your friends and family you were doing for a living? It's almost like MI5 level.
Yeah.
I work for the government.
But without being shot at.
Yeah.
So not much danger. I mean, I've always worked for myself, or predominantly. So I've always had lots of things going on, and so it's quite easy to lie. I'm going to the racetrack. So at the time, I was, despite being in the depths of despair in 2002, being unemployed for a good few months, which in your 20s, it's just like soul destroying. I then ended up getting hired everywhere. So I had a full-on racing season, ironically sponsored by the MOD. So I was driving a camouflage car. I was doing my reserve training and got the Top Gear job. So I had plenty of places to be, so I could easily fob people off with different stories.
But the identity was a massive thing, wasn't it? Because I remember when your autobiography came out, I mean, the BBC even tried to block it, didn't they?
They did. Basically after a long while, it was the best job in the world. It was fantastic. There was always this spectre of being fired. That was always there in the background. Don't do this or you get fired. Don't do this or you get fired. And after a while, I was still being, still on effectively a 1 day at a time contract. So which I was fine with, because I get it. If you become known, your days are numbered, and they're going to have to get someone else. The whole point of the Stig was being anonymous. But BBC, in their wisdom, had announced my identity in the Radio Times, in the TV guide. They did a front page thing, who is the Stig, and then inside was my profile. By that point, the newspapers kind of had pieced it together. There was enough leakage to them, so they ran those stories in the nationals, and we kind of limped on. Schumacher very kindly came in and did a big smoke screen saying that he was the Stig, but really, I could sense the writing on the wall, and I was starting to hear it fairly bluntly from people at BBC Worldwide. You just know when you're either going to get canned or it's time to leave. So I handed in my notice, And I thought it would be a fair and great idea to tell my story because I'd had such a great time. BBC decided that they didn't like that, they put an injunction on me, which is quite full on. Had to go to the High Courts, and it was pretty scary time, but managed to beat that off and get the book out there, which was a bestseller, which was amazing, and I'd loved writing it. Some really fun stories from great times, and I only look back with it happy memories, really. So other than the total panic and terror of the court thing, it worked out well.
And you mentioned Schumacher there. You actually beat his time around the track, didn't you? I mean, as a racer driver, beating Schumacher has got to be up there with the major achievements of your life.
I would not say I beat Schumacher at anything. It was a strange one. On the day that he joined us for filming, they would not tell me that he was going. I didn't know he was there basically until I met him. So in the morning, the first thing I did, they said, right, go out in the Suzuki Liana, the reasonable price car, and drive it really badly, and like get off the track and do all this sort of stuff. Because by that point, I could sort of read between the lines on the creative, and I thought, shit, this is how I'm going to get fired, because I'm going to do this bad lap, and they're going to say the Stig is broken, and that this is probably my epitaph. I'm filming it right now. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go out, let's go out in style. So I drove it very badly, and then came back in, and they've been asking weird questions like what size helmet and suit did I wear, and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, yeah, they're literally sizing me up to replace me. So got back in. I felt very, sort of down about it all. And then my boss came in and said, I'd like to come and meet someone. And I thought, right, here we go. And then they took me over to the caravan and I met Michael Schumacher. And then it was all revealed. So Schumacher was in for the day, also in a white suit. The universe was almost about to explode with two Stigs in the same space. And the whole gag was, it's Michael Schumacher, but then, oh no, it can't be because he got lost in the Suzuki, which didn't make any sense. But basically, he'd said when they offered him the opportunity to drive the Liana, I think he said 9, and just drove his Ferrari around instead. Can't say I blame him.
And since then, you've worked on a number of films, haven't you? I remember going to something with JLR because you did a lot of the Bond stuff, didn't you, for several movies? Tell me a little bit about some of the movie stuff that you've been doing. What would people recognise? Any chases scenes that people would recognise?
So yeah, I mentioned My Fault with the Nissan Silvia, which was epic. That was the recent one that went out on Amazon. So that was a lot of fun. But I suppose more recognisable would be the Bond films, which has just been amazing to work on those. 4. So I've worked on 4 Bond movies. So sort of boyhood dream to get on set, even let alone be wearing a Bond's pinstripe suit and hammering an Aston Martin around Lake Garda, which is where I started.
Wow.
Just epic, and it was an amazing opportunity. So from getting to know a bit more about the filming process at Top Gear, I just thought this is great. I love it, and I'd love to do more. Why not get some movie work? So I started reading the credits, which nobody ever does, do they? But from that, I picked out some of the names of the stunt coordinators and started making phone calls. Most of them told me to jog on. But Gary Powell, who was working on Casino Royale at the time, gave me an invitation to meet him, which is amazing. And then really through that network, got my first gig, which was National Treasure 2, doubling Nicolas Cage and driving on the roof of a car called a pod car, and skidding around London, which was pretty amazing. It was London's biggest car chase, apparently. And we literally locked down central London, outside Bank of England, and filmed day and night around these streets. I was totally hooked. It was just fantastic, because that process with way bigger crews than you get with TV, and the destructive capability of the stunt crew. To be given a budget where it's like, we've got 5 of those cars. We're going to destroy all of them at some point during this chase. This is the sequence, and it's all highly choreographed. And you get your Matchbox cars out, and you work out who's going to be where. And it's an amazing buzz. The difference with that and motor racing is with racing, it's all about precision. Don't damage the car because you won't win. And with the stunt work, it's very much teamwork, and the adrenaline's there because you've got to achieve a really high performance in a short window. So it's a bit like a qualifying lap, but it's all about safety because the cars on a track, everyone's going in the same direction, but with the stunts, you're mimicking real life. You've got people, working as pedestrians or jumping over the cars, all this mad stuff that could be happening, and you have to be really clinically, very very focused on doing exactly what you're supposed to do in the space you're given. It's so much fun though. It's great.
Yeah, there must be a huge amount of pressure there. The Bond one that really sticks out in my mind is it must be Spectre, where there's an Aston Martin, I think DB10. I think they did a special, didn't they? And the Jaguar CX-75 chasing it around. I can't remember what city it was. Were you involved in that one? Was that part of your work?
I didn't do much on that, and I wasn't in that scene at all. So I did a few days on that film, and I got to film literally the last bit in the DB5 when Bond took down Blofeld, and a couple of scenes in Austria. But no, that chase that you're mentioning was great with Bautista, the bad guy,
yes.
epic Bond villain. It could, who made the car look tiny. So no, it's good. That was a cool chase. I like that one, and the car does these great jumps. It's a cool scene, and I love the scene they shot in Austria with the plane sliding down the mountain and all that. Just amazing. So that's, watching the plane and all that stuff. That's the special effects department, which works quite often hand in glove with the stunt team. So you can, you'll see they create these, unbelievable machines. And how else do you get a plane to skid down a snow-capped mountain? But they find a way to do it. So it's also those guys that build the pod cars. So they put the driving system on the roof. So you put the actors inside the car, stunt driver on the top. Basically they will try and come up with a solution to almost any idea, and it's great teamwork.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you for giving us an insight into all of that stuff. But just back to the start of the podcast. If people want to hear more about the business you're working on now, how can they get in touch?
So go to BCA Auctions because we're there every week. We've also got an Instagram handle at MotorCap and a website too. So come if you stick it into Google, you'll find us pretty easily. And we'll start. There'll be more interesting, exciting news. I've got. Hopefully, I'll be attending one of these auctions at some point, and to sort of because I love going to auctions. The buzz is amazing. So it may be online, but you still get the same intensity and excitement. Going to go out visiting some of the dealers that have been starting to pick these up. So with any luck, I'll come and see you.
Nice.
We'll help you shift some chimneys and bring in some more exciting tackle.
That sounds like a plan. We interrupt this broadcast for some breaking news. John, I don't want to panic you, but the Car Dealer Podcast Live is coming round really rather fast.
Yes, I know that, James, because I own a calendar, but clearly you've been not paying attention.
How dare you, John? If I hadn't been paying attention, how would I know that it's on the September the 24th in Abingdon that we've got the Polestar boss, Matt Galvin, Vicky Hart from Waylands, and Alex Bradley from Small Cars Direct on with us,
Well, technically it's closer to Didcot, but I'll let that one go. Anyway, I bet you've forgotten how people can book tickets.
No, John, because on my script right here, it says head to cardealermagazine.co.uk/podcast, and people listening to this can book tickets with the special discount code PICANTO for 10% off. There's a social barbecue after the recording and plenty of time for a social catch-up with other like-minded dealers. We look forward to seeing you there. This is a paid partnership in association with Dealerway. John, guess what?
Oh, God, you've bought more ducks, haven't you?
No ducks, John. Wrong there. I've actually got a new habit. I've signed up for Dealerway alongside more than 2,500 other rated and vetted car dealers to sell my trade part exchanges. The site is designed for dealers to sell their part exchanges for more money, quickly and easily. There's no seller's fees, and buying a car costs just £99, one of the cheapest around. And when I haven't got the time to list a car myself, I can even WhatsApp them the details and they do it all for me.
That sounds awfully familiar. So are you selling all your stock there now?
Not exactly, John. But if I do have a sudden influx of Kia Picantos, I know where to send them. Dealers can find out more at dealerway.co.uk. We'll be right back. Now, John, I'm really enjoying how easy it is to pay sellers on CarWow.
I mean, presume you'd rather not pay them at all.
No, that is true. But now I can do it with CarWow Wallet. You can pay sellers, finance houses, and more instantly, literally in one click. It's secure, easy to use, and gets rid of all the pesky finance back and forth. It's a total game changer, John.
That does sound pretty good.
If you want to find out more, dealers can log on to carwow.co.uk/partners/carwow-wallet. Now, back to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you for joining us for the podcast. But we probably should do some stories and try to follow Ben's story, John, which is going to be quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all downhill from here, really. But James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week. And at the end, Ben gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who is the winner.
Yes.
James won last week, I think. Yes, you did.
Yes.
You were magnanimous in victory of going 2-1, 2-1. So off you go.
Thanks, John. I'll try and be quick because I'd like to get a few stories in this week. But the story I'm going to start with is news from America that Amazon have got into the used car advertising space. Now, Amazon have been, I would say, messing about with the automotive market for quite some time. They've actually,
like you, James, really, actually.
A bit like me, yes, John. They first got involved in it 10 years ago when they built a platform called Amazon Vehicles, which was like a research-only platform. You might remember it, John. A little bit strange. Customers could go on there and do a little bit of research, but they couldn't actually buy any cars. Last year, they did a partnership with Hyundai in the States again for the new car market. No other manufacturers have joined them on that, but it's still just Hyundai. But this latest deal is one with Hertz, the car rental firm. And what they've done is they've advertised all of those ex-rental cars on the Amazon platform, and customers can do the whole process, finance application, click buy it now, and buy those cars on the Amazon platform. So that's taking place now in a number of different states. There's current locations of Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, and Seattle, but they're actually, Amazon are planning on rolling it out to 45 sites across America. So you do all of the deal on Amazon, and then you actually go and pick it up from one of these Hertz car sales lots, effectively. So it just gave me the chance to have a little bit of a think about this. I wrote about it in my Substack this week, and I was just sort of thinking, like, are Amazon the ones to really be able to move the needle in the UK when it comes to advertising platforms? And I'm not quite sure. I'll be very interested to hear your opinion, John. I'm not quite sure whether they are. I don't know. Amazon is great when you need to buy bin bags or similar.
Sorry, bin bags.
I don't know, whatever you buy on Amazon, John. Probably something far posher than that. But yes, very easy to do, isn't it, Amazon? Very easy. It's very quick. You don't do much research. You search for the product. The one that comes at the top, you click buy it now, you're normally off it, and you've bought that product in seconds. When it comes to buying a car, I'm not sure whether it's quite well set up for that whole process. I don't know whether you've bought anything a little bit more expensive than bin bags on Amazon, John. But if you want to buy, say, a TV or something else, the research process on Amazon is actually quite difficult. Even finding the details about the car, it's normally hidden, or about the product, it's normally hidden away. And I'm not quite sure whether it would be good enough to give all of that information for a car. However, it is a different platform, and everybody in the UK is looking for other opportunities when it comes to used car advertising. Auto Trader is expensive. We've talked about that at length about that on this podcast, but it does work. But people want other opportunities, and Amazon could be it. So, what do you think, John?
Well, basically agree with what you just said. Let's move on. No, but I had to play around with it, and obviously these Hertz ones aren't on there yet. And just to say, the Hertz, it's like dealing with a slightly different world, isn't it? Dealing with car sales in America, because Hertz get through so many cars in America that they actually have their own used car lots, I think. Whereas here, it's a bizarre polar opposite to here. Here we'd say, do not buy a hire car, and they, hire car companies hide it very well in their kind of previous owner things on the V5 and send it off to auction. And we don't actively want to go and buy a Hertz hire car here, but in America for some reason they do. That's not live yet, but they do have a couple of like Hyundai sites available on Amazon in like California and places like that. And I was flicking through some of the classified ads on there, and that's exactly what you said, really. Like the information, the layout of all the info on these cars is a little bit clunky. It's not brilliant, to be honest. Like the TV example is great. Like it lists some specs that you're not really interested in. It doesn't really seem to know what's important out of the things that this car or this TV or whatever it might be has. So I came away feeling a little bit kind of disappointed by it. But I think, like reading between the lines of this, as you say, Amazon put the toe in the market with vehicle stuff 10 years ago, and nothing's really happened. And they've got an enormous amount of power behind them to actually do something if they really want to do it. And I just think this is a sort of like little experiment, as all these tech companies do. Like Google are well known for it as well. They'll launch a product and then 3 years later it's just gone. They've just decided, no, we don't do that anymore. I think they try lots of things and try and innovate, but I don't feel like they're completely serious with this one, to be honest.
What do you think, Ben? Do you think Amazon could crack this problem?
I think they're pretty serious, because I went to a conference where I watched them presenting on this, and how seriously they're invested in all the data and presentation side. So I would not underestimate them. And look at if you look at how much they put into things like the Grand Tour and all that, automotive content. Yeah, I think could be interesting space to watch. I mean, they've got the wherewithal to really go for it. But then whether it's who it's for is another question. Like you just said, what information can you get from it? And I mean, I've learned the hard way again. I'd rather buy from a respected dealer with a decent warranty. So you can look someone in the eye, and if there's a problem, on the whole, again, if you're dealing with good people, they'll look after you. The end. And I think if you bought online, it's I mean, if there's a little whatever it is, you're probably going to have to chin the cost. I don't know, but then they are good at taking returns. But it's a big thing to send back. So
You'd need a big cardboard box, wouldn't you?
yeah, but I imagine that they've thought of that. So I wouldn't underestimate their ability to take this in. So I think, when is it launching? Have you seen that? Is it coming out?
It's launched in the States this week, actually.
Okay.
So it's those cars from Hertz are for sale now. Whether it comes to other markets like ours is unknown yet. But
are they doing end to end with the Hertz ones? Because the ones I looked at were sort of go through the process, but you still have to go and pick it up yourself.
That's it. Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah. So at least you still have to visit a physical dealer, and you actually have to go there and pick the car up. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Anyway, John, that's my first one. Over to you.
Okay, I'm going to cheat slightly because I haven't actually published this story yet. Because I'm
Well, that's not allowed.
But I'm going to talk about it anyway. Yeah, well, it's a good story, James. So I've been off I had a lovely evening last night at the O2.
Did you?
I did. Yeah.
What were you seeing?
I was seeing something. This great band called Chery, who had these two songs called the Tiggo 7 and Tiggo 8. But basically, it was the brand launch of Chery UK. Chery UK, of course, is
at the O2.
At the O2. Well, now, James.
Okay.
It's when you say
the O2 in the corner.
It turns out there's two venues in the O2. There's the O2 big arena where you have your Coldplay and Adele or whatever, and then you have Indigo O2, which is like a little conference room, shall we say? I mean, maybe that's downplaying. It's quite.
It's the pub around the corner.
Exactly. But it was quite big. It was about 400 people there, and it was unusually for us because media and dealers and general stakeholders are normally separated out. You normally have your press launch, very serious, and then you have your dealer launch, which is a bit more way. In this, they were combined, so I kind of had to sit there through a lot of make some noise for UK CEO Gary Land, all that kind of stuff, which was a bit peculiar to me. But anyway, the crux of this story is we had a little kind of roundtable chat with some of the Chery executives. And I do hate roundtables because you can never ask any questions more than about 30 seconds long and then they move you on somewhere else. But I did get a little few nuggets of information out of them. And I mean, this story is basically that the success of Jaecoo and Omoda has come actually as a bit of a surprise to the executives of Chery UK. Because because, of course, a bit of context, they've been here for, a year and a
Less
bit?
than that, I think.
Not
I
long
think-
at all.
I
They've
think
got-
Omoda was October last year and Jaecoo was January this year. So
Yeah, so not even that then.
Mm.
Not even a year. And they've got 89 dealers, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's upwards of 20,000 cars, isn't it? They've pumped out already. And they've only got really 3 cars, one of which is an electric variant of another one. So it's pretty impressive stuff, really, what they've managed to do. So I kind of asked that question to them, 3 of their execs. And all of them pretty much said, yeah, it's been Gary Lan, who's the UK CEO, said it was a pleasant surprise, a very happy surprise
right.
that they've done so well. Obviously, it's difficult for a car company to say something's a surprise because they want to say, oh, no, we knew it was going to, it was planned. It was planned. But I think it's evident that it's come as a bit of a shock to them, because the fact that they've now decided to launch this third brand, because the whole idea with Chery's an enormous company. We're not really aware of them, or certainly weren't aware of them more than a year ago. But Omoda and Jaecoo was supposed to be their export brands. So Chery, in theory, was never supposed to come here. And they've now gone, oh, actually, maybe there's a bit of a market for these as well. So Chery will be here launching next month. They've already got 25 dealers signed up, different sites. They're not wedging them into the Omoda and Jaecoo sites. They've got additional sites. So they are deadly serious.
There's not going to be enough space for these dealerships, is there, if they carry on at this rate?
Well, you say that, James, but you might have noticed quite a lot of other brands are deserting their dealerships at the moment. And that sort of came up as well. So Ollie Lowe, who's the UK head of product, basically said as much. He said, a lot of manufacturers are contracting at the moment. They're under cost pressures, they're losing and shedding dealers. And also, he says, a lot of them applied agency model to an industry that didn't ask for it. Quite an interesting comment. So he puts a lot of their success down to the dealers and their years of experience. They know how to manage customers and relationships and so on. So I thought that was really nice as well.
So where does Chery fit into this whole kind of? If you were to describe them as other manufacturers we know, how would you place them?
Well, it's very difficult because they are very confident that they're all completely separate, but I couldn't really get a solid answer out of them as to what they all represent. It's not like your Jaecoo is your Audi and your Omoda is your VW and your Chery is your Skoda or something like that. They all seem to be a little bit more. They gave me some slightly strange answers to that. But from what I can work out,
what would you say? What would you say? Because I can't understand where does Chery fit in the hierarchy? Is it like the poshest or is it the? Not?
I can only tell you on price point, it's the cheapest.
Oh, okay.
But again, they're different shaped cars, so it's very difficult. So one of the ones they announced yesterday is going to be the cheapest plug-in hybrid on sale in the UK, 5-seat kind of, let's say Nissan X-Trail sized car, maybe a little bit smaller than that. So they are going in for price point mainly, and I think they're probably not. They're at the point where they've said the models are competing with each other. They're their own nearest rivals, which is a strange situation to be in.
When I headed to China for the motor show earlier this year, went with Omoda and Jaecoo. It absolutely opened my eyes to quite how serious they are about the UK. It was a shock, if I'm honest. Like just going into the hall, it was full with Chery, Omoda, and all of their other sister brands. Was a big shock to the system. Did you get the same sort of feeling having gone to the O2 satellite venue that you've been to? Did you get the same feeling that these guys are incredibly serious and are going to take over the world?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll be completely honest, and I'm sorry for anyone from Chery or the PR team listening, but I kind of went along just to see if it would be as sort of, I don't want to say hilarious, but as like bombastic and insane as I perhaps imagined. And it was actually quite sensible, apart from the fact that there was some sort of dance troupe from Britain's Got Talent, not Britain's Got Dance. I've combined two things there. Yeah. It was all a bit peculiar. But yes, they're deadly serious. They say they've come up with the world's most efficient hybrid powertrain. They were very like, we are an engineering company. We're not. We've always made our own engines. We've not bought them in from other people. All that sort of stuff. And there's 2 Cherys coming in the next month, the 7 and the 8, but they also had a 4 and a 9, and the 9 was really like, I know, James, I know.
It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
But the 9's the poshest one, and that was a very, very luxurious thing. And yes, I do get the vibe with the amount of money they've spent and the amount of firepower they're putting behind it. Yeah, they're serious. And the other thing is, I would say I chatted to a couple of dealers, just getting in and out of these cars, and they were all thrilled with the success they'd had with Omoda and Jaecoo. I mean, there was one guy I chatted to who's got a dealer in the West Midlands. He'd got rid of a popular Stellantis brand, shall we say, and swapped in Omoda and Jaecoo, and said, in the 20-something years he's been a dealer, he's never seen anything like it. The way that
Really?
customers,
I've seen so many of them on the roads as well.
yeah.
Ben, what's your take on these Chinese manufacturers?
Well, I had not heard of them before this conversation. So I'll put my hand up. I need to look into that. So, and I haven't seen one on the road that I'm aware of. Maybe I have, and it just didn't register.
They look like every other SUV, so I mean, they're quite easy to miss.
Yeah, I mean, the competition from China is pretty strong because a lot of it is cost driven, and obviously the engineering is a new battleground as well. So ultimately at the moment, price dictates a lot of the market, doesn't it? And people need value. So I think it's what we were talking about earlier, whether it's secondhand or if these new models coming out, people are being quite motivated to try and get a deal.
John, let's move on because we've probably got enough time to maybe just get one more story in each if I'm quick. I'm just going to pick the story that the first EVs that finally qualified for the full electric car grant are both Fords. So we've got Ford's Puma Gen E and the e-Tornado Courier are the first models to get the full £3,750 discount under the government's electric car grant. This is a scheme that launched 7 weeks ago, I think, and has only just announced the first 2 cars available for the full rate. All the other ones so far are in the Band 2 rate, which is £1,500 discount. And the reason I picked this story, John, is I've spent most of my week investigating this, and I'm sort of skipping ahead because the story will come out next week. But I've spoken to every single manufacturer in the UK to ask them whether they've applied for the grants and whether they expect to be in Band 1 or Band 2. And you will be surprised how many or how few cars will actually end up in Band 1. I suspect, I don't want to already second guess my research, but I suspect there'll only be 5 cars, maybe 6 maximum in the UK that are available for that full £3,750 discount, which is, quite frankly, ridiculous, isn't it? Because all of the customers out there are seeing this scheme. It was all shouted about, £3,750 off EVs, yet it's impossible to get it because there are no cars currently available. Up until 2 days ago, these 2 Fords now available to get that full discount. So I'm looking into that at the moment. I'm speaking to a number of different experts on the electric car market, and I'm just waiting for a couple of other manufacturers to come back with their answers. But from what I'm seeing so far, I think this scheme is going to be quite hard to actually get that full £3,750 discount on any more than 5 or 6 cars, which I don't think is what the government was expecting. We've talked about this at length, haven't we? But it's all about these science-based targets. So it's not just about being an EV, it's about how that EV is made. And importantly, what we've found since I've been looking into it further is where the battery's made. I mean, that makes up the biggest part of where these discounts lay. So the manufacturers submit their paperwork, the government looks at it, and they work out which band you're going to sit in. But do you think the government thought they were going to have more than 6 cars in this full discount rate?
I don't know. I don't know if their thinking went that far, to be honest. I think, much like, as we've said before, this is sort of 90% a marketing and PR exercise for trying to get people into EVs than, actually trying to incentivize people. Because as we've said, you could have just taken the 20%, reduced the 20% VAT rate to something else and lopped an amount off all the cars, but that doesn't sound. Probably someone in a spin doctor has said, well, that sounds a bit percentages. Just make it nice and a bit cleaner with a lump of money off. And also, if they really wanted to help people get into EVs, they would probably do something about the VAT on public charging, or put some sort of cap in place, or for prices. Anything, any number of things like that would help, and it would help across the whole car market, new and used EVs. Whereas this is just targeting new. So I don't know. And my other question would be, does it actually matter if some of them aren't getting the full
Well,
amount?
it does, because from the dealers I'm talking to, the issue here is all of the customers are saying, well, can I have my £3,750 off my new EV, whatever it is? And the dealers are having to say to them, not quite yet, because we don't know whether we're going to get it. And the actual facts are probably hardly any of them are going to get it. But the issue is customers are holding off. They're not buying the EVs. It's having the opposite effect to what they wanted this scheme to do, because the customers are expecting to get this money off and it's not going to come, which is the worry.
I mean, Ian Plummer said a similar thing we did an interview with him, Ian Plummer from Auto Trader, last week, didn't we? Or this week? Can't remember. It's been a long week. Actually, it's been a short week. But he described it as a holding pattern, I think, didn't he? Of just everything's on pause until this is all sorted out. And it has. I mean, it was supposed to be sorted by the 11th, wasn't it the 14th or the 11th of August, something like that. And here we are at the end of August, and it's still not quite there.
Not quite. It's not even a little bit there, John.
No, it's great for us because we can talk about it every single week.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I was surprised, just going back to this actual story, and the Puma and the Tornado, whatever it is, tiny
Courier.
van thing.
E-Tornado Courier.
E-Tornado, what is that? Isn't it like the kind of bull-nosed Fiesta van thing you can buy?
I have literally no idea.
Exactly. You don't see any of them, do you? You don't see any of them. But I was surprised that the Puma was actually the one to get this. It's Puma's made in Romania,
but I think the batteries I think the motors are made in the UK, aren't they?
Yeah, but the motor's not actually part of the calculation.
No,
so the motor's
maybe it is.
I don't think it is, but the batteries for this are not made in China. They're made in South Korea, I think, which might have some bearing on it, because probably South Korea is quite good on its green energy, I would guess.
Don't think it is,
but I don't really know. But I was surprised it was this and not, let's say, a Peugeot Rifter van made in wherever they're made, Ellesmere Port, that one up in the north. I was surprised it's not that. And then, of course, the Nissan are hoping that the new Leaf will fit into this, aren't they, as well?
Yes. Yeah, but that's obviously not in sale until later this year.
No.
John, do you want to wedge one more in? I mean, we won't trouble Ben to comment on it unless you really want
I am going to comment, because you've
triggered
me. You've triggered me with the words government thinking, and the whole thing is a joke. What you've just described is just typical, isn't it? And you're telling us what to drive. These narrowed down to a handful of models that's probably going to change next week, waste people's time. They're going to try and navigate this thing. In the meantime, we've got I think it's 4 times the most expensive electricity in Europe, because of the mad energy policy. So it's just like they just need to get a grip. There is no thinking. There's no joined up thinking. And like you're trying to apply logic to a situation. Trying to find out, well, the battery was from here and this, that, the other. It's mad, isn't it? Whereas a simple solution, like you say, across the board, if you want to underpin the EV market in the UK, there's a very simple way to do it. Keep it simple. It was the same with diesel. We were all told to buy diesel because it produces less carbon, etc. Now it's been pilloried. So, what does it tell you?
What's your take on electric cars, Ben? Do you like them?
Yeah, I've been lucky to experience a lot of different models. Starting actually, the first one I ever drove was the prototype Tesla in the back of a Lotus, and it was pretty amazing to feel it for the first time. Followed by the Leaf, which I was less impressed with because the range was so short. I think, and for me, the key thing is, and it still is being able to trust what the thing is telling you when it comes to range and power consumption. And there's very, very, very few models I've driven that are true to the you've covered a mile and it's depleted a mile worth of battery. So I spent a lot of time in the Lucid with their car. That's been really interesting. There's a few others, Neo, where they've got some innovative technology where you've got the battery can come out of the car like a cassette. which is clever because as the technology changes, there'll be improvements in battery tech, and you better switch it out. But so there are some real pioneers in that space that are doing it really well, and then there are others that you get in and you like, I can't trust this thing at all. It's
Do,
it's I
do you
just
like the driving experience, Ben?
it's very different. I love combustion, particularly petrol. I'm chugging around in a diesel at the moment, but from motorsport and from a sporting perspective, I still love combustion engines, and they are incredibly efficient. Manufacturers have invested billions over time honing that combustion motor to work the way it does and to use as little fuel as possible to give us the best return. But yeah, they're different, and I think I do enjoy them. The power and acceleration you get with electric is unlike pretty much anything else. But it's an interesting, I think the world should accommodate both, and I think that they've got different applications for different. Half the problem is with owning an EV and living with one is the charging network is not there for it, and certainly the UK. I think it's we're really underwhelmed with charging resources, and let's bring it back to the electricity price is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm going to forfeit my last story to ask Ben a question,
Go on.
which is, with the move to EVs and all this sort of stuff, a lot of people are sort of suggesting, and I think Clarkson, for example, has suggested this, that the motoring show is kind of dying. People are not going to tune in to watch EVs buzzing around a track. They want to see V12s going sideways and all that sort of stuff. What do you think of that kind of feeling? Do you think things like Top Gear and Grand Tour or whatever, Fifth Gear, do you think they still have a future?
Well, I don't know if they have a future. they better make a good show. If you don't make a good show, you're finished. So in terms of that, I think YouTube is where it's at. Hence, I'm having a great time on my channel, and there's some other really big hitters doing great content. Matt Armstrong, Tavares in the US. There's so many. There's a whole world out there on YouTube. So we'll see if those other shows survive. But is car content surviving? 100%. Hell yes. And it is about the V12, the V10, the V8, the V6 turbos, that revolutionary efficiency, and the tech in that genre in there. It's so honed and amazing. So I think definitely that day is not over. It's definitely not. There's a world of both. I think, well, hybrid as well, hybrid EV and combustion. They absolutely have a future, and it's also about affordability, like we're saying, and bringing it back. 2017 cars from Japan, that offers great value, and if you're looking for a deal, that is also the way to go. So
good plug there. Good plug.
Well, it wasn't totally intentional, but you're looking at
smooth,
brand new stuff. The next iPhone, the next this, the next that. You do have to weigh up, how long am I going to have this car for? Is the battery going to deplete over time? Yes, it will. And what happens there with depreciation? I don't like buying stuff that loses value.
Neither does James, but he keeps doing it every week.
How dare you? Low blow.
Right, so that's the end of our stories. So Ben, before we ask for your verdict, are there any stories you think we should have talked about this week but we haven't? You can say no. That's absolutely fine.
I can't think of it. I thought those were pretty punchy, and I was impressed with the Amazon story. I was slightly aware of it, but it's interesting that that's now kicked off, and that for sure will go global. So it makes sense they'll pioneer it in the US, but that'll be coming here pretty fast, I think, and that will definitely have the folks at eBay and Facebook paying attention.
So is that your winner? Is that what you're going with?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting model.
Yes. I will accept that win. Thank you very much. 3-1 in the series, John. Oh dear, oh dear.
Remember to post the little invoice, sir.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry about that. Thank you. I'll buy some Japanese cars in the not too distant future. Lovely.
Wonderful.
Well, on that note, all that's left me to say is thank you to Ben for joining us today. It's been great to have you on, talk about what you're up to at the minute with your Japanese cars, and of course, a bit of backstory about you as well.
Thanks for having me, and for letting me know there's some new cars on the market, so I'm going to go and check those out.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, boys. Have a
Good
good
stuff.
one. See you soon.
Oh, super.
And thank you as well to James for something or other. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. So make sure you're subscribed so you can be notified when that goes live. We've not talked about Carly the Podcast live, but there is an advert in the middle of this. So everyone should be clicking the link below to book their tickets with 10% off if you put in the word Picanto. You haven't bought Picanto in a while, have you, James?
No.
Oh.
But still, it's a good discount link. So please use it on the website.
Lovely. Yes, check out the stories we mentioned today in the show notes below as well, and head to Car Dealer Magazine for much more news besides. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.